Good evening. My name is Ralph White. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Ralph. My name is Marty Cosgrove. I'm an alcoholic. Really happy to be here tonight. Really happy.
Let me put a couple of things out because people are probably like, wait a minute, this is not the normal. So energy is really, really low. Really, really low. I've been in the bed all day.
Oh boy.
I got up at 5:30 this morning to drive to the valley for a 7 a.m. meeting for my sponsee. And I got back in the bed and said, I ain't going. But then the way these defects work for me to my benefit is, oh, but you're going to have to talk in a meeting tonight. So when you talk at this meeting tonight, you want to let them know how you punked out on a commitment this morning. And so I jumped up and I went out there. And you guys, I'm on E. What's that have to do? So why show up here? And Raquel, I hope, at least on my end, Marty, I'm going to defer to you to do the laboring, or I hope on my end, something can come out of this. I'm a guy that every experience, every single one, I believe that you find God in the large details and the small all the time, all the time. And, I don't want to be that guy, you guys. I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be the guy that is steadily one trick pony, talking about the same thing, talking about going through the same thing, talking about. And so because of that, sometimes it could render me inauthentic because I'm acting like something ain't going on it is. Me and Leslie were talking last night. And this sounds like a weak word to me. Grieving. Sounds weak. Sounds regular. Sounds ordinary. Everybody in here would say, oh, no, 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 no. You're supposed to. I don't care. I'm talking about me. And so this business of running. And I think this idea of God, when I was at the meeting this morning and sharing, and people get it confused, and people say, when you're going through tough times and when you're going through tragedy and when you're going through, you guys, I don't feel like I'm going through tragedy. I feel like I've been blessed to be part of a triumphant life, and it got every ounce of juice out of it. Mom didn't leave nothing behind, nothing. So I don't feel sad like that. But the danger for a guy like me is, although the statement might be true, I don't feel it discounts, dude, but what are you doing through? What is going on? You know what I'm saying? And so my energy is kind of low. Today, I've been in the bed all day. Felt a little nauseous. Phone has been ringing. Ain't answering the phone. Ain't going through anything. Said, let me show up here and let's see what gets shaken out of this experience. Let's see what a guy with 39 years of sobriety looks like, tethered to a power, invested in a power, committed to a power. Also, I'm invested with you guys. I'm invested in Alcoholics Anonymous, and so sometimes you'll hear people say, and it's a lot of you thumpers on here right now. And so at a certain period, it got to be fashionable to bash slogans, right? There are some meetings that even say, show where this is in the book, blah, blah, blah. So one of the favorite slogans to bash is meeting makers make it, and people, let me share something with you. That's because I don't always know what I'm talking about. I think my experience is the experience. That's number one. And I think if it ain't my experience, you lying about it being yours. That's number two. But check this out. this is what I did not know. In these times, uncertain, crying, some hurting, all that. Guess what I do? I go to meetings. Why is that, sir? Because at 39 years, meeting makers make it. We be thinking that's aimed at brand new people, and that is not a program of recovery. No, it's not. But stop tripping off that. More than one thing is true in the spiritual all the time. And this is my second time when I went broke at 22 years sober, and all I had on my resume someday was at least I made it to a meeting. And I've not been picked off. I've not succumbed to the vagaries. I've kept my hand in that hand. And so I keep my eyes open for what's going on, because I think I know, and I don't always know. I get my lessons when I'm in them. I sincerely am a guy that when they say the set aside prayer, a lot of people do, and then go ahead and look at what they've highlighted or look at what they know or look at what is always. I'm a guy always. What does this really mean for me? What does it mean for me? And so this business of grieving and this business of laying in the bed, this is the visual I got today. So if I was in Atlanta, Leslie would be putting a towel over me and wiping me. What do you need, Daddy? Blah, 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 blah. I believe the God is putting a towel on my forehead, sitting in the bed, wrapping me. What you need, dog? Me and you. Me and you. And so I don't ever think I'm visited with some stuff to test me no. I am supremely blessed, and I know it. Marty, go ahead.
Well, buddy, I mean, if we're having a conversation, what a lead in. What a lead in of vulnerability and absolute truth. Unfortunately or fortunately, I'm jacked tonight. I am full of piss and vinegar tonight, brother. So don't you worry about it. You're going to have to wave your hands and say, man, let me in there. And, because I got to tell you, my excitement around this is a couple of the most startling revelations in my own personal journey in the last probably 5-6 years, certainly since COVID, came from some conversations with Ralph. Just some prying open of some stuff. And that isn't to sort of blow smoke. That's just simply to say that sometimes when you're on a kind of in a conversation like this, because that was over dinner, and sometimes you can be in a conversation and one little nugget will pop out of there that feels like an insult, it feels like some sort of evaluation or judgment. And I'm going to tell you something, in my life, in my sobriety, and you know my story, the two greatest moments in my life were the two harshest judgments ever made of me in my life. My first sponsor said, "You're too goddamn stupid." And I went, "What?" And my second one was when Mark Houston said, "You're asleep dreaming, you're awake." Those are two very pertinent, ignorant, rude, deeply sensitive judgments that and they saved my life. And so I judge the shit out of everything now. I judge everybody who asks, and then Ralph does the same. He did it with me anyways. I don't know if he does it with anybody else, but I'll tell you right now, Ralph asked a question that's been on my heart all day, because I got up with a bunch of men this morning at 7:45 myself and jumped on a meeting and had a great meeting this morning about faith. A couple of the people that are here tonight were at that meeting. And I got to tell you, I'm really getting some really powerful stuff with this group of men who are really sort of tearing it up and talking about this journey. And it's very similar to what Ralph's talking about. We're not talking about being free of any difficulty or some pain or hurt or some sort of transitional stuff. We're not free of that. Never are we free of that. And how we're going to respond to that is certainly how I'm going to respond to that. I could never predict. I've never been able to predict it. But what I do know is that when I lay down my weapons, my approach to life, myself, whatever it is that I get up in the morning fully armed with, and it disguises itself sometimes behind some really deep spiritual readings and all that horseshit. It disguises itself behind that stuff. And I go into the world thinking I'm all set, and I just self all over people. And I'm good with because I think I'm doing God's work. He and I are connected, walking hand in hand, going through the world, and that's what I think's happening. But that stuff has fallen away from me lately. It's really fallen away from me. And spending time, just a little bit of time with Ralph and some time with Kurt and some time with some people on this page, a lot of the meetings we go to, we're really talking about this evolution of this relationship with God. And I think that's an important thing to talk about. It's not just talking about God, the God. It's talking about this evolution inside of me, because I have no God story if I don't talk about how blocked I was from God, from this power. I have no power unless I recognize that I have been completely blocked off from this power. And I know that as a kid, and talking about old ideas and growing up in an Irish Catholic home, we had ideas about God. We were given them. They were presented to us. We went along for the ride. That was it. And I talk about this sometimes, about a dramatic change in my life when I was 9 years old. I had already been sexually abused at 8 and those kinds of things. They were a little conflictual in my mind about a God that would allow that to happen. But I had a little girl in my class at 9, and she had 8 brothers and a sister and her parents. Now, she slept over at a friend's house, and the house burnt down with all of the people in it. And when I walked in, Catholics really love funerals and shit. So what they did is they walked us across the road from the school to the church, and we walked in there, and all the caskets were lined up at the front of the church, from small to large. And it was awful. I'm telling you about it with a clear picture of that and how it made me feel. I was terrified. And I looked up at I had an experience like Sandy. I looked up at the crucifix and I thought, what kind of God would do that? What kind of God would do that to this little girl? And she's a nice kid. I'm 9. I'm already doing shit I shouldn't be doing. I'm thinking, wait till he gets his hands on me, And so I have this evasive experience with this power that's, a horrific thing. Once I discovered alcohol, I didn't need another power. I had discovered the power. I had discovered the elixir to life. There was no doubt about it. From the time I was 12 years old to the time I was 20, alcohol had become my master. It was my go-to on everything. And it wasn't like I was struggling a lot. There was like all kinds of violence and insanity and all that kind of stuff. And nobody would ever say I wasn't struggling, but I wasn't struggling, if you understand what I mean. Everybody else, the newspapers and the courts and the judges and the police and my parents had lost me at 15 years old. That was it. I was off and running on this self and just bringing self into the world. And it was very easy for me to avoid any of this God stuff. And when the full gospel guys were in prison, or the Jesus jumpers and all that kind of stuff, we had a native section who had all of their sweats and all that kind of stuff. I knew that they were doing something important, but for weak people, for people that couldn't just sort this world out themselves. And that's how it was. That's the position I was in. Unless I was beat into a surrender, I wasn't consciously going to make a decision one day to go this way. So on July the 16th, 1987, at the throes of absolute desperation and absolute earnestness and rage, it wasn't love and bright, it was rage. I screamed out, I don't want to live like this. I don't want to live like this anymore. And that was July the 16th, 87. And poof, the desire to drink, the criminality, the violence, all that stuff was removed from me. Well, most of it. It's just a few things lingered there for a little while, but most of it was ripped from me. And I knew that something had happened. That was July the 16th, 87. That's my sober date. And for the next 14 years, I didn't drink, and I went to meetings and I helped people. It's called two-stepping. We got it. It's in our literature. That's why it's there. It's their literature so we can identify ourselves. And in the area that I was getting sober, that too was what everybody else was doing. Don't drink and go to meetings was the operative word. Ralph's not wrong. I know where to go. When it's not clicking and I'm just a mess, I need to go and find you. And I'll tell you about that in a second. But for the first 14 years, I didn't have any governance. I had no relationship with this power. I had language to support a relationship to that power, but I had no experience. I had no experience with that power. Here's the thing I learned from Sandy, is that over time, and once I had my experience with Mark Houston, I jumped into the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, and they mean so much more to me now than the 12 steps on the wall. This way of life, these 12 principles, they are set down as they are for a purpose. And I'm not going to come at you with the hard case, big book stuff. I'm just going to tell you that when I'm living this life, I'm a dad, I got 4 kids, I got a career. I got play sports, I fish. I got all this. I got this big life, and I love Alcoholics Anonymous. And 14 turns to 20 years, turns to 25 years, and all I'm doing is kind of coming to try to understand this 10th step. That's really what I'm trying to do. I've got a theoretical understanding of all the other steps, but I'm trying to understand this 10th step. And in conversation with Sandy, I start to find out that it was in the practice of that 10th step, ongoing, without any expectations or results, simply tied to discipline. And what Ralph is saying too, buddy, this stuff gets on you and you grab a blanket and you curl up. There's care there. There's relationship with a power. There's conversation and communication. You can't evolve in a relationship without communication. If you're laying down and you got the blanket pulled up and you're full of self-pity and poor me and how could this be happening to me, all this stuff, that's a bad direction. But if you're laying there and you're in communication with this power saying, I'm taking some rest. I hope that's okay with you, big fella. And you feel the love and the care and the protection, like you get warm, you get wrapped up in a blanket. That's what's supposed to happen. And then but this idea that the way out is always about, Ralph said, I go to a meeting. I'm going to go to a meeting. It's not because I'm going to go to a meeting and need to share. It's not because I'm going to go to a meeting, because that often is sadly what happens, is that you walk in a room and everybody defers and all that. But sometimes I just need to go and shut up and listen. And that's what I'm finding that I'm doing at this morning meeting at 8 o'clock in the morning. So I'm just listening and I'm taking in so much stuff, and it's moving me spiritually. So, when I think about this thing over the long haul, and Ralph's talking about, significant sort of juice and some hurt and some pain right now. And many people here identify with it. And, we understand it. It's his pain. And my pain was my daughter. And I've talked about this on here because the God that we're talking about, the God that I'm talking about, makes bank shots. And I don't just see it in the good anymore. I don't just see it in the good times. I just know that it's always there. And what I mean by that is this. By the process of engaging in these steps 4 through 9, and the process of a 10-step way of life, I'm just chugging along, living my life, thoroughly enjoying the stuff that's going on, and my daughter dies. And if you'd asked me, how are you going to be when your daughter dies? I wouldn't have said, well, I'll be reliant on God. Or I would have said, well, I would probably want to die myself. I know, and you guys know this, parents know this, the answer to that question is, I could never survive that. I would never be able to survive the loss of my child. Well, I'm here to tell you, I have not only survived it, I'm prospering. And a lot of people don't like to hear that because they don't understand our spiritual way of life. And I'm not going to insult anybody that hasn't had the magnificent reality set down upon them. But I've been free of this with the anguish and the crack in my soul that came when I heard of her death, heard of her passing. And I sat at her bedside and I held her hand and I sobbed for a couple of days. I would not let go of her hand. And when she left, there was a crack that I'm surprised, Elizabeth, you didn't hear it. In Kentucky, I'm surprised. It was so loud, I'm surprised you guys didn't all hear the crack. And I sat immobilized, like Ralph is talking about, for a couple of weeks. And in that immobilization, I prayed. And I'm not talking about falling to my knees. And I just prayed. It was a conscious contact in my head, my heart, and my soul that this power needed to reveal to me the purpose for me and the need to move on and the understanding of this tragic, tragic death. And please give me the strength and the power to be there for my beautiful wife, Leslie, and my other kids. And please, and her son, Jesse James. And please give me and that's what I'm sitting there in quiet contemplation about. And each day moves to the next day, moves to the next day. And nothing happens. 2 weeks almost to the day. Poof. It was all gone. The pain and the anguish was gone. And Ralph's right. Grief is very different for everybody. It's a word that needs definition from the individual experiencing it themselves. Because I had grief yesterday. It was momentary, but I do grieve. And it's okay. And Sandy said, you don't think I grieve my daughter every day, Marty? I'm not handcuffed or manacled by it anymore. And so these are the things that we share. We share these things at tables and over dinner and stuff like that. And they stick and they mean so much. They mean so much. But the reconciliation around this is because we're going to talk about God. We're not going to talk about God like this when we're sitting with a brand new guy trying to qualify him into a 12-step program. We're going to talk about God when we got all our friends and our family in this page, on this page. Like we're going to talk about God, and it's real. It's legit. It's like people know what you're talking about here. And if you are new, if you're just recovering, you're just coming to Alcoholics Anonymous, this is a meeting that these people on this screen care about one another. And if you're not sure whether you belong or can belong to a fellowship like this, stick around at the end, because this God we're talking about is not just mine. It's available to everybody. This power and this freedom is available to everybody. So that's where I'm going to take this, Ralph. I want to sort of hopefully just light you up a bit, and correct me on all that shit.
You know that I will ask some questions.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that 14-year stretch. Let me ask you something. Number one, do you suffer from an illness that only a spiritual experience can conquer?
Yeah.
Okay. You believe that?
Yeah, I do.
And I went 14 years without picking up.
Yeah.
And I come out of the back end of that experience thinking what?
That there's so much more to this. There's only 10 steps that I missed. You know, I had the don't drink and help people pretty good. I was down pat for 14 years. It was pretty good, but I was still blowing up cars, robbing, lying, stealing. I was a nefarious knucklehead, you know, and do I believe that God was with me all through that? I absolutely do. I absolutely do. Do I believe that I was taking direction from any God? No, I was not. No, I was directed by self. Self was in total dominion. Yeah.
That's very interesting to me. I think when the founders started this program, if they had started it and they said when they were out looking for drunks, if they had found a way to not drink for a year, 14 years, they'd be like, damn, this is the way. Here's where I'm going with this. And I don't mean to. I really probably shouldn't. This should probably just be a one-on-one conversation. But everybody's here. My resistance is low, so you're going to get who you get. I'm a guy that really subscribes to the AA way of life. I suffer from an illness that a spiritual experience to conquer. I believe that I have spiritual experiences, and I believe that I have spiritual connections even when I don't think I do, because I think I know what that looks like. What's the evidence of it? It's prima facie, as they say in the law. You know, prima facie. I stay sober X amount of time. Here's the thing, and I sponsor some people on here too. This business of seeking the power, and it will change as you stick around here, right? It will evolve and it will grow. Don't get caught up in the self-absorption that sometimes comes from this constant self-examination. Don't get caught up in, because I'm in this fellowship, in this program, one of the things we do, and it's valid and it's vital, we shine a light on ourselves, and we shine a harsh light on ourselves. But by the same token, there is a grace that's available to people like me and you. It trumps everything else. It trumps my knowledge of the book. It trumps my ability to write a fourth step. It trumps my sitting down in front of somebody and doing a fit. It trumps. There is a grace that's available. How do I know? Because it's been available for me, and it continues to expand and evolve. I have some sponsees that are on here that are constantly, are doing that 6-step stuff, right? I continually go back and bump my head against this wall, bump my head against this wall, and bump my head against this wall. And I say, okay, I need to write more inventory. I need to take a look at that. Stop it. Stop. Stop putting your hands on somebody. Now, we know we talk about, I don't have the power to change me. I know that's what we talk about. But when we've been doing this for a little while, you guys, I've tapped into something that's real. And I don't know. I'm on a different place right now, and maybe I won't stay here that long. But in our efforts uh, to always be diligent about the seeking, right? Sometimes my efforts have me diligent about the seeking self, seeking knowledge, seeking information. I'm going to share something with you, everybody on here, on this platform. I'm looking at you, Bobby. I'm looking at you, Al. I'm looking at you, Kat. Marty, something happened as a result of this program, these steps, and this power. Something happened, and you're a good man. You're a good man. You're an honorable man. You're a man of integrity. Do you fall down? Yeah, you fall down. Do you slip up? Yeah, you slip up. But I'm 72. I'm not in this life to continue to put my foot in my ass and this and that. I'm a good man. Not perfect. I fall. But I know the guy that came to you. I know the guy that came to you. This guy that's sitting here in front of you right now is pop. Keep my word. I say where I'm going to be, and I'm there, and I do what I say I'm going to do, and I'm there. When I fall down, I clean it up. When somebody reaches out and wants something to happen, okay. And you know what happens, you guys? This business of this power. I don't know. We probably got a lot of sponsors on here. And you might think sponsoring is a two-way endeavor, right? It's me and my sponsee. We got this two-way communication. I'm going to submit to you always that it's never two. That it's never two.
I like that.
That this power sits in the midst. I don't know how many of you in sponsoring have heard something come out of your mouth that you didn't know was in your mouth till you were working with somebody else. This giving it away. And I'm not a guy right now, you guys. I'm just sharing Ralph. I'm me. And I have a lot of sponsees that are pretty, down the road in recovery. And we talk about accountability. We talk about love and service. We talk about being a husband or being a wife. We talk about being a son or being a daughter. We talk about what do these principles look like with skin on them? I'm not just I'm 10th and I'm 11th. No, I'm living. I'm in life. Ask any of my partners. You call me. We are going to walk it out. We're going to walk it out. And this business, this God idea, God does not make hard terms. Remember that. A lot of people are I'm thinking, who does make hard terms? Me. God don't make hard terms. God is dealing a couple of cards. He's dealing love and he's dealing grace. That's what he got. He don't have some of this other stuff that Ralph has. He don't have that. He don't play with those cards. I was going to a meeting when I was fairly new, and a guy saw me coming to the meeting, and he said, "Ralph, what's going on with you?" I said, "Oh, I'm just doing God's work." He said, "What do you think you can do for God that God can't do for himself?" Floored me, right? Because I'm the right answer guy. But I've been schooled in AA, and so I asked my elders. And so he was an old timer, and I said, "So John, talk to me. What is it I'm supposed to be doing?" He said, "Your job is to do for God's kids. God's job is to do for you. God gave you something he didn't even reserve for himself. That will stump you. I got something God don't have. I'm listening." He said, God gave you the choice over whether or not you're going to return his love. God has no choice. God is love. And so this journey, you guys, be diligent, be diligent and be hard. But shows there's grace available. There's grace available to me. There's grace available to you, and ultimately that's what we walk up under, the umbrella of grace. I think I'll walk up under these 12, and these steps are what connects me. I need to be clear on that though. I think that these steps imbue me with some power, imbue me, and so I get, no. My sponsor, Bob B. out of St. Paul, Minnesota, says, Ralph, you can't eat the menu. You can't eat the menu. Get in life. And that's me. I'm a down and dirty guy. I get to work with some men and women, a lot of you guys, and it's not even sponsorship. It is the supreme privilege. I pinch myself. I didn't know when God sent for me October the 11th of 1986. I didn't know what was available. I didn't know grown man was available. I didn't know me as me was available. I didn't know that me not susceptible to your ideas of me and your vision of me. This me. About 5'7", overweight, an old fat guy, still slightly, socially awkward sometimes. This is me, goddammit. I'm here. I'm up in here. For everything that comes my way, I'm here. I'm here. And I didn't know that level of freedom. I didn't know that level of accountability. I didn't know that was available. Fine print in Alcoholics Anonymous. I thought I was signing up for the Just Don't Drink and Use program. A lot of fine print. I didn't know that the same process and the same power that took the bottle out of my mouth, same process, same power, stood me up as a dad in my little girl's life. Same power, same process. Took the bottle out of my mouth. Same power, same process. That allowed me to be, for the last 10 years, it was me and Mom. I think that's why Ronnie and Reggie look like to me. They processing it differently, and they cool in the gang. And you guys used to be my deal. I used to think I didn't have the capacity to feel. I used to think that other people did because I measure how you are. And I don't curl up in a fetal position. I don't go to those places, but stay open and stay available. All of you guys who see me talk, I'm crying my ass off all the time. Cry baby. And that come with it too. Marty, gone.
No, buddy. Grace, it's just you and me here, Ralph. It's just you and I sitting here. I can't see the faces. I don't know who's new, who's just coming up here, who actually came to this page to talk to us or here to listen to us, or who actually came here because they wanted to learn or experience a little something different with God. So, in our job having this conversation, that's exactly what it feels like. And I'm very grateful. And you draw it to grace. So you're talking about the grace that you're able to just recoil and just take some time and take some space, and not answer the phone. And that's it. This is the grace. We all know the demands that are put on us in our consciousness around always having to be there and always having to answer the call and all that stuff. There's a lot of pressure being a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous. There is or there isn't, but the idea is that it's just like this whole thing about drawing inward. And if indeed God is deep down in every man, woman, and child, where else are you going to go? Drawing inward was exactly what I did in those 2 weeks in that armchair. Drawing inward was where the grace of God was allowed to come into my life, where I wasn't pressured by self saying, I got to be spiritual. I got to act spiritual. I got to go do spiritual shit. I got to be spiritual to my family. It was just to kind of go inward and deep down inside every man, woman, and child. And I know just, so little about what's happening to me right now spiritually in this relationship with God. I know so little about it. I'm very excited because I don't want to know. As soon as I know shit, I come on to a Zoom page and I tell you all about it and get mad at you guys for not knowing what I just learned yesterday. It's ridiculous how my mind works. But what I do know is that I was set free on July the 16th, 1987. Not knowing I was manacled by something, I was set free. And for the next 14 years, Ralph, I have never questioned the fact of whether I had received God's grace, because that's what it was. Purely and simply, it was grace. 14 solid years. Now, here's what I really like about a discovery, is there is no time in the spiritual world. 14 years don't mean shit to 14 minutes or your 2 weeks coiled up in the ball. It doesn't matter. There's no time in the spiritual world. This awakening, new awakenings, my story is what it was like, what happened, then what happened, and what I'm like now. And that man that brought me that message was honest about his foibles too. And I never want to be that perfect, driven his way to snow guy. I never want to be that guy. But to simply having a cigarette, well, probably 3 of them at the same time, and saying to me, you're asleep, dreaming, you're awake, I'd never heard the term before. And I knew that I was about to be woken up. And our liturgist, then I woke up. He put me on my knees and I did the first 2 steps. The first time in my Alcoholics Anonymous life, I took the first 2 steps at 14 years sober. I had nothing but grace for 14 years. Alcohol was killing me. It was destroying me. It was robbing me of everything. And I screamed out, I don't want to live like this. And the problem was removed. I knew I had a barn-burning spiritual experience in July the 16th, 87. But I did not have a 12-step experience. This man simply said to me, you need to have a 12-step experience. I can tell you've never had one. That's what he said to me. And that's how I couldn't tell whether it was an insult or not. I said, he could tell. He could tell the way I was shooting off my mouth and talking about all the great sobriety. I told him I ran AA in Canada. If you need anything up here, you just ask for me. He said, well, son, you're asleep, dreaming, you're awake. He wasn't listening. So I ended up having that experience. Now, again, I want to refer to this stuff about seeking God. Is that as I got closer, to this individual and began to be, referred to certain readings and educational stuff. And we try to see where religious people are right. We talked about this, not that they're right, but we try to see where they're right. My Catholicism started to make sense to me. All that childhood stuff started to make sense to me. And I went to a Catholic priest and I said to him, because a born-again Christian challenged me and said, you're going to burn in hell forever. Good deeds are merely dirty rags at the feet of the Lord. I said, well, thanks, my brother, but kiss my ass and get out of my car. And I went to a Catholic priest and I said, what was he talking about? And the Catholic priest said, the 7 rites of passage. You've had those. Now I'm checking in. You see, this is me at like 6, 8, 10 years of sobriety. I'm checking in with Catholic priests to see if I'm really actually going to burn in hell, because I believe I am. And I just want to have a good stretch before then, right? And I want to give up too much of these luxuries of my selfishness. So because I know I'm already burning. Well, none of that stuff is true. All that religiosity proved to be smoke and mirrors to me. They just did. And here's why. Purely and simply. And guys, I'm gonna blow out the altruism of my Alcoholics Anonymous life right here. I can be angry. I can be sad. I can be joyous. I can be contemptuous. I can be scared. I can be worried. I can cry. I can do all of those things. But never am I closer to God than when I'm with you. Now that's going to sound like out and out bullshit. But I'm telling you, whether it's in an engagement like this or whether it's sitting at a meeting, or you guys, any of you who have spent time with me knows I don't go in easy. Like I'm not a chill kind of buddy, JJ and Raquel and Ralph and you guys, I don't go easy. It's like I'm all in. Why? Because the power, the God of my understanding that I know exists inside of me becomes really, really apparent when there's another alcoholic sitting across from me. And I believe that God is the distance between you and me. That's it. And I don't have that anywhere else. Now, I go to religious services and ceremonies, and I go to these places, and I try to bring that. I try to bring that in my family with my brother, who has all of his regard for life, untreated or whatever, his assumptions of life, or the world's a terrible place to be, and you get immersed in these. I want to love my brother unconditionally, but I don't have that in me. The angst and all that stuff is driven up inside of me, and I have to go to this power. But when I'm sitting with an alcoholic, they can say the same stuff as my brother and maybe even more rudely and do terrible things to my home and my family and all that kind of stuff. But this power exists there. And I'm not sure that grace has been talked about since I came into Alcoholics Anonymous. I used to love listening to all the old guys talk about that grace and how you come to Alcoholics Anonymous. You tell me where else you drop everything at the door. Where does that happen? And I'm telling you, not just because we suggest that's what you do for anonymity. It's not even an effort. We find ourselves in these rooms so unlike one another, yet we're together. Isn't that strange? All the barriers that we have in our life when we approach life about what we like or what we don't like, what we're going to put up with, what we're not going to put up with. Like, we put up with shit in AA that we never put up anywhere else, in the workplace or our family. And it's like, what is that? Well, it says love and tolerance is our code. The only code we got. There's no code to believe in God. There's no code that you got to stop drinking or stop using the heroin. Or, there's no other code. No other code. Just love and tolerance. Love. Like unremitting love. The love that was shown us is, like Ralph said, with skin on. What does it look like? Is that what I'm bringing to the table? Am I bringing that love to the table? And tolerance? It's funny because since I've ever heard the word in Alcoholics Anonymous, tolerance, and I've heard it in other sort of, but here in tolerance, I always thought this was about my needing to tolerate you. I always thought that that's what the practice was. I didn't realize that it's about you tolerating me too, that I should try and work on being a little more tolerable. You know what I mean? It's like, I never even thought about that. But this thing is, when Ralph talks about going to the 6 and 7, it's like, the one thing that did, Ralph, that 14 years, is it picking out of there the defects of character and the selfishness and self-centeredness that drove everything, picking that stuff out of there, the promiscuity, the lying, the cheating, the stealing, blowing up cars for income for the first 6 years I was sober. It's like, this is how I make a living in AA. And some of the guys were in AA. It was good. I was doing good business. You know what I mean? It's like, was the way it was going, right? So you have this, when I'm pulling this stuff out, I'm recognizing that lying and deception and stealing and those things still exist in my life because I can't get rid of them. I can't do anything about it. Now, here's the funny thing is I have another revelation through the 6th step when it says, why can't we do the same thing? We surrender in the 1st step. Why can't we do the surrender in the 6th step for the same thing? I surrendered, and some of those things started to vanish almost immediately when I started making amends. I do not believe that these are static steps that were just sort of drawn up to put on a wall somewhere and say, here's our program. I really believe that these things are a way of life, that if I engage in the process of the directions, I end up having a spiritual experience that is very hard to go back on. You know, it's very hard to go back to that. I can't go back to that. I was having a conversation with one of my POs today. He was making fun of me today. One of my parole officers was making fun of me today about what a square John I've become. Because who would have thought? You know, I mean, I don't like him, and I'm probably going to get into it with him when I see him. But the thing is like this transition, I couldn't have predicted this. You describe yourself, Ralph. You know, I've just seen you in the last several years as a gentle sort of man moving along through this world in a really calm and peaceful way. How asleep am I to believe that you wouldn't have the same life difficulties as almost everybody, if not everybody? What the hell am I thinking, right? So what then becomes the operative here? What becomes the operative task? The operative task is to do something like Raquel does, formulate, or with the idea from formulate a meeting where we can talk about this power, about this transitional power, this power that transforms this selfish, self-centered, and maniacal, hateful person into somebody who actually gives a shit about life and the people in it. You know, my life is spent, you know, it says our very lives as ex-problem drinkers depend upon our constant thought of others. I always like to think about a pie chart on that. And it's only like 9 o'clock or whatever it is. How was my pie today? It's just constant thought of others. How was today? You know, not bad today. I got to be honest with you. I'm feeling probably pretty good tonight because today was a pretty good day. I was pretty much thinking of others most of the day. But that could swap tomorrow. That could change tomorrow. And I could take on a heap of, I told you I had a couple of grieving moments yesterday, but I could take on a heap of pain and a heap of, Leslie and I were just talking before we came down here about our oldest daughter. She had a terrible diagnosis against her. She's in her 3rd bout of cancer, and she's just finished radiation and chemo again. And it's not good. It's not good news. And so I walk out of that conversation and I say to myself, help me be present, God. Help me be right here, right now with you. That's it. And I haven't thought about that conversation until right now when I'm talking to you. I think that's what freedom looks like. And God will relieve me of that selfishness and self-centeredness around that. Poor me, my daughter's sick, it'll relieve me of that, as long as I do this, as long as I stay the course and think of his children and do the best I can and go up and give Leslie a hug and a kiss and ask her where she's at with this and get her a cup of tea or, something like that. It's like we have a way out upon which we can all agree. All the ramifications and all the sort of details and the ingredients of that way out might be very different for some of us, but we do have a way out. On that we can agree. We don't have to be the way we're at all. You guys know how I feel about right here, right now. I talk about it enough to make people sick. Right here, right now is all we got. Even Ralph. This moment is all he's got. He's dragging the morning into it. He's dragging the day into it. He's dragging it into this moment because I'm all bummed out. And it's like, hey, right here, right now is all we got. It's all we got. And I'm with you guys. I've been excited about this all day, Ralph, because I'm coming to love you. I don't know how that happens. Is that like, what is that? What is that? Save me from myself here, buddy. Go.
Wow. Thank you, sir. Is it all right now? One of the questions, if you're going through something and it's heavy on, is it all right now? And every right now kept being all right. And it turns out that God's grace is always sufficient to meet the need. Does not always exceed the need, always sufficient to meet the need. And what ends up happening, guys like us who get invited on this platform, what ends up happening is we now get to start forming a track record. I got a track record with this power. It's not something I'm speculating about. I know. I already know for myself. And so this business, me, you guys, and everybody has, I think, their own calling on the path. A couple of things I think that we do a disservice to folk, because having had a spiritual awakening, that's what's promised all of us, spiritual awakening. But sometimes I think I know what your awake spirit is supposed to look like. And I don't have a clue. One of the biggest things. And that couple of things that are instructive for me, you guys, that keep me in good stead with most of it. I don't take myself too serious. That one is when you see somebody that, one of the hallmarks of spiritual awakening, two, one, they can laugh at themselves. If you can't laugh at yourself, miss me. You coming with your finger in I'm not that guy. That's one aspect of spiritual experience. The other one of true spiritual experience, to me, you got to tell somebody. You can't help it. You got to tell somebody. And so for me, you guys, in all these years that I've been on this path with you, I've relaxed into who I am, what it is that I do, what it is that's my niche. Do you know how many alcoholics there are in Alcoholics Anonymous? Of course you don't, but it's a gang of them. Which means we need as many different approaches and folk. That's the power of AA, but I want to discount and diminish that. I want to mash on you. No, that's our power. That's our power. And so what has come to me, you guys, where I live, I incline toward the light. I'm not one that's going to give you the dire warnings. I'm not one that's going to be telling you if you don't do this, this is going to happen. I'm a lighthouse guy. I incline toward the light. I'm a guy that stands in front of you, 33 years old, bankrupt in all departments. And I stand in front of you right now, granddad, dad, son, brother, sponsor, All those things, when you say make a name for yourself in an anonymous program, those are the names I've made for myself since I've been here. And I decided to put one hand in God's hand and the other hand in your hand. And it has been a hell of a ride. And you know what? When I sit on one of these platforms, I'm like Chuck C. When you read Chuck C's new pair of glasses, he says a few things. And one of the things he says, I'm not responsible for what you think. So Chuck said, I don't defend nothing. I don't explain. I don't defend. You have my approval to disagree with me. You got my approval to not like what I'm saying. You got my approval to not like me. Check this out. I don't always like me every day. So you got my approval. And that is a level of freedom, you guys. So stop wrestling with folk and tripping with folk. I didn't mean to get on this soapbox as we get out of here, But one of the things I would like to encourage us, because at our best, sometimes we show up at our worst. But at our best, we're encouragers. At our best, we support. At our best, we show up. At our best, and so, be gentle with each other and all that tripping and the rest of that. I didn't know I was going to go here for a minute. Let me get out of here. Raquel, I want to thank you for inviting me and Marty. Marty, thank you for carrying me, dragging me along. Thank you, sir.
Absolute pleasure. I just want to say before we go here, in that conversation that you and I shared of depth and weight, Ralph proposed something to me that I had considered it but had never heard it, and I want to throw it out there for people to consider, and that is that Ralph simply said to me, and this is in keeping with the situation that we're talking about now, Ralph's loss and my loss and facing these things with sobriety. Ralph said to me, what if it's all God? And I said, what? Because I had some ideas, I had some ideas about the way shit should go. And Ralph just simply inserted into the conversation, what if it's all God? That's it. Think about that. Meditate on that tonight. What if it's all God? Everything you got going on, everything, the good, the bad, the ugly. What if it's all God? What if Ralph's day today? What if it's all God? It's easy for me to say, stop that self-pity wrapped up in self. Stuff. What if it's all God, right? I mean, what a glorious world this would be if we could come and step on that side of the line and start seeing everything as His power, His work. Because again, over the long haul, 14 years, 40 years, we can't see. We're existing right here, right now. That's it. So yeah, I think there's going to be some questions and stuff, Ralph. I don't know. I have an old clock. Yeah.
Yes. Well, first of all, I want to thank both of you very much. I appreciate a lot when we get to speak about these things that sometimes don't look so rosy or peachy. And I think the best thing that somebody can do for me is to show me how you do it when it seems that it doesn't feel good, when it seems like I don't know what to do in this moment. And I just pray and I just really hope and desire in my life that I get to that point where both of you are, that I can actually just sit with my Creator and say, okay, you're bringing the towel, if it's okay if I'm here right now. And that example is that example of what if all of this is God? So I want to thank you both so much. And if you guys would like to unmute and thank our speakers, and we're going to open for questions. So
Thanks, Marty.
we can
Thanks,
thank
Ralph.
them.
Thanks, Marty. Thanks, Ralph.
Thank you
Marty.
both very much.
Ralph.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was
Thank
incredible.
you, Marty and Ralph.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Marty.
Thank you. That was great.
Thank you from Canada.
Wonderful.
Thanks,
Canada
Marty.
loves you guys.
So I'm going to mute all of you, and we're going to
Thank
take
you.
questions. If you have a question, please raise
Canada
your
loves
hand.
you guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
If you have a question, please raise your hand. Thank you. Okay, perfect. Marta, you're up. Would you like to unmute, please?
Hi, I'm
Martha?
Martha. Hi, I'm Martha. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Martha.
Hello. Yeah, today's been a very awkward day for me, I would say. Unfortunately, I will thank you so much for all the shares, Marty. I could definitely affiliate and see myself when you were describing when you were speaking. There's lots of things that you said that I could relate to. So thank you. But Ralphie, a lot of what you said to me didn't make too much sense to me, and maybe I feel like uh, perhaps it's maybe where I haven't reached that stage in my life, or perhaps I haven't been through what you've been through. But I know that I am an alcoholic, and it's probably going to happen to me, or it's yet to come. So, um, yeah, I just thought that, you know, I've been drinking for the past a year and a half, 2 years almost now, and coming obviously to these meetings and listening to the stories and listening to people that have recovered and not recovered. It helps so much for me, and I just want to um, get better. I need to get better. Unfortunately, guys, sorry, I did join the meeting halfway because I was in another AA meeting, so I
Thank,
didn't hear.
thank you,
I did,
Martha. We want you to get better and keep coming to us. It's a pleasure to have you.
thank you, my darling.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Martha.
Thank you.
Anna, do you have a question?
Oh, sorry. Hi. Yeah, I'm Anna. I'm an alcoholic and I have 17 months, and that was the most remarkable, Marty and Ralph. I almost am speechless. It was a coincidence. One of the members of my favorite Bronx Big Book group was in here earlier. I think she had to hop on our other meeting, but I do have a question. Your presence, both of your presence, and the topic of hardship and grief hit me so perfectly today, because 2 hours ago I called someone in deep grief. I do some animal rescue, and I had to bear witness to some horrible abuse of a dog. Somebody in the rooms asked me to help because I do rescue, and I had to watch a video of this and get in touch with I live in New York, but I had to get in touch with the Los Angeles Police Department. And I guess I faltered. My feeling of my attachment to God and how this could happen hit me so hard that I had I've had the most beautiful nearly 18 months of sobriety, and the most profound fourth and fifth step, and a connection that feels so powerful. But I felt so dark when watching someone abuse a tiny dog, and I don't even know. I can't get over the fact that this dog looks exactly like Albie from Vegas, this dog flying behind his head. So maybe there's something beautiful about that. But it's a very small, little, beautiful dog that was abused. And it's been happening for 3 years. And I guess my question for you guys is, when you see something that is the best thing to kind of look away? How do you process, the death of a child? I guess you can replay things. That was what was dangerous for me the last few days. I'm choking up thinking about it, how do I move away from something that feels so cruel, I guess.
Thank you, Anna. Somebody will answer your
Thank you.
question.
You want me to take a flyer at it there, Ralph?
Mm.
Anna, I only know one way out. And I said earlier, there's a way upon which we can all seem to agree. I turned left away from my office the other day into a section of the town that I live in. And there was a man on all fours with his face in the slush. And he had just done a heavy hit of fentanyl, and his it was bubbling. So I knew he was still breathing. And I was horrified by the visual. You know, you take that badly abused dog, I was horrified by the visual. And I immediately asked God to help me be of service to this man. And I went over and I Narcaned the guy, flipped him over, I Narcaned the guy. He came to and gave me shit. And I almost punched him in the throat and ended him right there. However, I'm a much more evolved spiritual man now. And so, but that's how it works. So in this opportunity you have, your love and your compassion, obviously, for animals, and it's deep inside of you. You have to execute that at all fronts. So you're being called upon to be of service there. That's it. These things that happen in the world, as horrific as they can be, I'm being called to be of service. You help that owner, you help that pet, you help that, and you bring it along. You bring it along in a certain way that you're doing his work. And that's it. That's the only way. That's the only way. And work with others is often the answer.
And then
Thank you, Marty. Thank you,
okay,
Anna.
okay.
Severia, do you have a question, my love?
Hi there. Yeah, hi. I'm Severia. I'm from Vancouver, Canada, and I'm 3 years sober today by the grace of God. I've heard Marty and Ralph speak in Vancouver and in your hometowns, and I just want to say thank you so much. Ralph, you showed up even though you didn't want to or you were sick. You're not fit. Thank you, guys. We show up. That's what we do. And you guys both touched me tonight. I wasn't coming on. Teresa sent me the link. I was like, what? Oh, okay. And I came on, and it was the best thing I needed to hear tonight. So, guys, thank you that you keep showing up. Thank you.
Severia. Jane?
Hello, Jane Alcoholic.
Hello,
Hi,
Jane.
Marty. Hi, Ralph. Hi, everyone. Good to see you. Thank you for this. So grateful that the power showed me this flyer earlier today so I could be here. I have a question for you. I don't know if you can answer it or not, but I heard a quote that says something along the lines of Alcoholics Anonymous in a magical way took everything from religion that was good and left everything that was divisive. And it's called the spiritual heist of the century. Do either one of you know who said that? Was it Bill W? I love you.
Thanks, Jane. Go ahead, Ralph. Do you know the answer to that?
I don't know the answer to that.
Well, I think if we stole all of that stuff, well, that even makes me love AA more.
Right? I'm going to send it to you, Marty.
Okay, Jane. That's so good to see you. I love you, buddy. We'll see you soon.
I love you too.
Can't hear you, Raquel.
Veronica.
Sorry about that. Veronica, go ahead.
Hi. I had a question. I have a huge resentment. It's very complicated. I went over it with my sponsor, and it's against my husband who, took drugs, had a stroke. Now he has a brain injury. I have to take care of him. I'm his caregiver. And she's telling me that I have to make an amends to him for telling my children that your father's a drug addict, bad-mouthing him. I have to jump off because I'm at work, but I'm still listening. I'm just having a hard time with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Veronica. Ralph, you want to say something?
Yeah, most of the time when I say they're complicated, it's just because I have not taken the time to go through our process. So get rid of the narrative. First column, my husband. Second column, I think what you told us is he had a stroke, which really speaks to me. I made that about me, as if he wanted to have a stroke. When I do my fourth column in inventory, one of the first questions I ask myself, 2 or 3, one, did I step on somebody's toes? 2, did I make a decision based on self? 3, did I set the ball rolling? And 4, Ralph, when did this become about you? When did this become about you? And there are people on here who have what I want. I don't think I can do it. I don't think I'm equipped for it. That's why we go to meetings. I got somebody that's the next person raising their hand, and her husband is been in it for the last couple of years. It's night and day, the way that she perceives and the way that you perceive, Veronica. And do I want to be right or do I want to be free? I can be right. Yeah, this is what okay. In self-justified anger, no, that is the height of self-centeredness. Sorry.
Yvonne? No, that was good, right? Yvonne?
Hi, everybody. I'm Navon. I'm alcoholic, sobriety birthday 5/23/97. Thank you, guys. Marty, you made me think about this question. You said, Ralph said, what if it's all God? So my question to you guys to ponder, if God is everything, then what cannot be of God? That's it.
And I love you and I love that question. And for those on here, that's not a question for me and Marty to answer. That's a consideration question for everybody. It'll inform the way I walk through this life. What if God is there? What if the bad, all of it? And think about it. Think about it. And there's power in that. I'm leaving the victim seat. I'm leaving I'm a victim. I'm at the doo-doo. And it helps me expand whatever my concept of this power is. If my concept of this power is he's limited, he's testing, but if I ask myself that question, what if God is there? Now that's going to inform limitless spiritual expansion.
The whole idea about being much less with worry or agitation or doubt. If God's everything, those things vanish. They vanish. It's like, it's hard to even conceive of anxiety anymore for me. Or to worry about an event that's coming up, or, it's hard to conceive of that. And yet there are other areas that, because it says God is everything or else he's nothing. And I said, what is our choice? So it's just about it, this God being all or nothing. And I love what Ralph said. This is a consideration for everybody. It's your proposal on step 2. It's like, this is your proposition. Is God everything in your life? All areas of your life? I like the pie chart shit. Do a pie chart. What areas of your life where God isn't? And you will see that those are the areas you're struggling in. It's your financial life, your sex life. Those will be the areas you're struggling in.
I like Marty saying that. It's evolutionary too. Somebody with 30 days or 60 days or 2 years is not going to have evolved that, because it's a practice. I gotta exercise the, okay, God, trust God muscle and the shut the F up muscle.
Yeah. And when Ralph was talking about the question on the resentment, it goes to the narrative. Like, if there's a narrative constantly in your head, is that supported by this belief or this faith or this understanding of this power that's working in your life? Or is it just this constant diatribe of worry and anxiety and what's coming? They're narratives. That resentment is just based on a narrative. And you get to change the narrative. You're the author. You get to change it.
I'm sorry to bust in, Raquel, but I got to go lay it down.
I actually gonna let you all go, guys. Thank you so very much.
Marty,
and I thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
And
thank you.
See you in a couple of weeks, guys. And get the link for the recording is going to be in the chat. So thank you all very much.
Love you.
Bye, Marty. Bye, Ralph. Thanks.